Hi, welcome to Plain Talk. Today's show is going to be an interesting one. We're going to touch on subjects that skirt the issue of whether or not this is a failed nation or not, a hellhole or not. Because if you were one of the 194,000 people who the increase in the minimum wage is supposed to affect, the people who live in the hotspots and the at-risk communities, you might have a different view of what others on the other side see. When we come back, my guest is somebody well-versed and experienced in leading this conversation. Be back shortly. And we're back, and joining me in studio today is Mr. Gregory Sloan-Seal. He is the program coordinator of the Citizens Security Program. Welcome, Gregory.
Welcome. Good to be here.
So, tell us what the Citizens Security Program is for those who don't know.
Well, since 2008, we've been working in high needs communities throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Started off initially with 22 communities, 19 in Trinidad and 3 in Tobago. And in 2014, we expanded into the whole of East Port of Spain, Laventil and Movar, where we...
What was the first communities?
The first 22 communities.
Well, name some of them.
Well, starting from the south, Embacadere, La Romaine, Enterprise Chaguanas. We would have worked in Pinto Road, Arima, also Samru Village, Mutulands in Arima, Upper Mount Dor, and Farm Road Extension, also known as Bangladesh. That's off the bus route there in St. Joseph. And then coming along the East-West Corridor, we would have worked in the Beetham Gardens, also Sealots, St. Babs in Laventil, also Gonzales in Belmont, Never Dirty and Mon Repo in Movar. And in the St. James area, we would have worked in Kukurit and Debe Dundonald Hill, Dego Martin area, Covine Road, and Patna River Estate. In Tobago, we would have focused on Scarborough, Greater Scarborough area, Bon Accord, Canaan Bon Accord, and Bethel.
What determines what communities makes your list?
Well, in 2006, 2008, we spent 2 years actually just, doing a lot of research and trying to understand exactly, where we should work and what we should do. And it really boiled down to working in communities that were experiencing a disproportionate level of crime and violence, and where they also would have had some civil society engagement, as in some vibrant community-based organizations, NGO engagement, and that sort of thing. So we're looking at communities that were, had high needs, but where there was also, the ability to start doing work on the ground within a nimble fashion.
So these are communities that generally the public has come to know as hotspots.
Well, people would call them hotspots. People would call them at risk, whatever have you.
You were the person who coined the term cool zones, or something to that effect, that turning hotspots into...
That actually...
Where did that come from? I know that was a marketing plan for a while.
That actually, I first heard of cooling off hotspots. That is jargon that was used by Chicago ceasefire, which is now called Cure Violence. Right, we partnered with the University of Illinois Chicago campus with their Chicago ceasefire /cure violence approach to reducing gun violence. in East Port of Spain, Laventille and Movar, between 2015 and 2017, with very promising results. And within their jargon, they talk about cooling off hotspots.
What's that mean?
And then I also had a colleague who, Ernest Nurse is his name, who for our ministry's Calypso competition sang a song called Cool Things in Hot Spots. Yeah. So, yeah, that's where you may have heard it. What does it mean, cooling off a spot? Is just, reducing the levels of risk to violence
So you
within
have
the
to acquire
community.
critical data.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we work with data, definitely.
And you influence that data on the
Well,
ground.
we collect the data, and it'll be initially definitely quantitative. So we're looking at numbers, right? Actual shootings, homicides, armed robberies, domestic violence situations, assaults, these sort of things that we would have
So
gotten.
violence is your remit.
More or less violent crime, yeah. And then we also have qualitative data that we collected through a survey instrument that we use, a crime and victimization perception survey, which we used back in 2007, and then we did it again in 2013 to gauge if there was any
shift.
marked difference in persons' perceptions of victimization and their role.
Victimization by who? Criminals or law enforcement?
Actually, a mix in terms of what was their perception of law enforcement, in terms of there were many different fields that questions that we would have asked. I mean, it was over maybe 200 questions.
But I've gotten a lot of information from work that you all have been doing. How long you been doing this now?
We started to implement the project in April of 2008. So 11 plus years.
And you would say that in that time, you would have identified causes of a lot of the problems on a personal level. That what guides choices
Yes,
into a life of crime.
most definitely. I mean, for the first 2 years, 2006 to 2008, we did a lot of field work, to understand what were the root causes, the risk factors associated with violent crime and criminogenic behavior and so forth.
What would you say?
Well, one of the overarching
doorway?
things that we've seen is a person's exposure to trauma, mental, emotional, physical trauma. So we're talking about situations within the home, the immediate home environment, domestic violence, being victims of it, being witnesses to it. We're also talking about community-based violence. A lot of our communities, you see, a lot of individuals in Trinidad and Tobago, either directly or indirectly affected by trauma, right? Directly meaning that you're growing up in that situation, either within your home, within your school, within your community, or you're experiencing it vicariously through the media, through your interaction with persons, or just knowing that a friend, a colleague, an acquaintance, or even a stranger, just what you see in the papers, what you hear, the stories you hear. People are grappling with a certain level of anxiety and hyper anxiety and fear of being
And that contributes to
victimized.
the cycle.
Of course, it contributes to the cycle, most definitely. Yeah, and
So
it also affects young persons, especially in high needs communities, who are in the school system, to function at an optimum level. And one of the reasons I say this, not having a whole lot of empirical evidence to support it, in Trinidad, that is that over the years, having worked in the YMCA, having interfaced with different organizations, we take ALTA, for instance, that does adult literacy. So you get kids 16 to 18 who participate in the ALTA program, and you can find within 3 to 6 months, they go from being non-functional readers to functional literacy, and exponentially improving to be able to read and understand what they're reading properly.
Literacy
right?
is so critical.
So what we realize is that it's not a cognitive impairment or some sort of learning disability that persons would have had that prevented them from learning to read at a younger age. When you ask questions about their home life and so forth, then you get to hear these stories about neglect, poor nutrition, domestic violence in the home, these sort of things, that would not have prepared a primary school student to go into school for a 6-hour period and absorb the information and participate actively in the process of learning. So we have to understand these
But all
things.
this information that you have, this is a quick aside. I want to come back to what you're
Sure.
saying. A quick aside. All of this information that you're gathering, you have instructive information now. Who's using it?
Well, the various, remember, the information that CSP would gather would be information that's already being gathered, be it through the education system, be it through CAPA in the Trinidad Tobago Police Service, be it through Ministry of Health or whatever have you. All right, and I believe that all ministries are, I guess, grappling with how to effectively implement.
You're not answering the question.
Go ahead, ask me again.
You have a lot of critical data now
Mm-hmm.
that could be used to influence outcomes in communities.
Right.
Would you say that that is taking place currently? That you've seen interventions in communities based on the data that you've provided to turn circumstances around. Have you seen that happen at any time in the 11 years you've been doing this?
Within the communities?
I am
Most
talking
definitely. But at a governmental level, so our program was a pilot project. It ran for 9 years. After the pilot was completed, there was discussion on how we can ramp up and sustain something like this. And I believe this is where the National Crime Prevention Program, which is a program that is functioning in partnership with the 14 regional corporations, supposed to really expand that reach, that conversation, and that service delivery throughout Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, but Gregory, there's a sense of urgency in a lot of these places. That little boy you spoke about who had to sit in a class and try and absorb 6 hours of schoolwork, that's coming from violence, going home to violence, and that's his everyday. What have you seen that we've done as a nation? Now, I don't want to pin it to anyone. What have you seen that we as a nation have done to turn his world around so that when he comes to school, the play field is level for him, like every other child who does not have that to contend with?
Well, I believe, I was on the Children's Authority Board for 6 years, between 2009 and 2015, when we were in the process of setting up the authority. And looking at the data back then in terms of children in need of special protection and so forth, I remember we drafted a human resource. We did an analysis of what would be necessary in terms of just
Case by
persons
Yeah.
necessary to launch the authority. And we came up with a figure just over 300 personnel to treat with the thousands of cases that existed then, right? And
What did you get?
I think, well, by the time I left, I think they had sanctioned about 70 staff because they were going to phase it in. It wasn't as simple as hiring 300 plus people in one drop, right? I mean, you have to interview. And I can tell you, I was part of that process too.
But that started in 2009?
The board was assembled in 2009.
When
and then
you
we had to go through
no problem, but you identified that you needed 300 personnel when?
I would say by
2012?
No, by before 2010.
Before 2010?
Yeah.
So that's 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And they've not yet moved to that place. Some of those young children have now become adults.
Sure.
And our lack of a system to respond, and this is not pointed on you because you have the information. You've worked both ends of it because you've gathered the information through CSP, and your involvement on the Children's Authority Board means that this is a place where we can actually impact that little boy in the school. Nothing's been done yet.
Well, no, you see, it's not nothing. maybe not adequate amount, but I wouldn't say nothing. Because to say nothing is to say that they wouldn't have an authority, they wouldn't have systems in place. There are systems, from my
It
understanding,
took us 12 years.
it's overwhelmed.
It took us 12 years to pass that bill into law. The Children's Authority Act. It took us 12 years. Our priorities as a nation seem to be upside down sometimes. We know. All of the thinking people know that hurting people hurt people.
Mhm.
That people in at-risk communities, we do this thing in Trinidad Tobago where we blame these people and we don't realize that they too are victims of circumstances, of life. That little boy grows up to be a man whose brain is now rewired. He does not see the world the way a child who grew up in a functional home in West Moorings might. And he's going to be at cross purposes to his own development. And there's going to be fallout from that. And we know that. And we're not acting at the root cause. 10 years ago, people told me last thing. 10 years ago, I heard people in senior ministries saying that we've lost a generation. I listened to the nonsense and I slide. We've lost a generation. The mission has to be to target the generation below. And generations are passing with us having that information, losing generations. How do we account for that as a nation? How do we excuse that? You have all of this information.
No, we don't excuse it, and I don't think there's any lost generation. As I'm involved in these discussions all the time, and if you really think about it, I mean, we don't have a lost generation. We have quite a large number of young persons who have who exhibiting dysfunctional traits, antisocial behavior, and so forth. But that's still a minority. The majority
What's that number?
Boy, just a couple of months ago, I was tallying.
We have 200,000 children in the school system.
Right.
What percentage of that is broken? We lose 5 to 7,000 a year. What percentage of that 200,000 is broken children that need intervention, rescue?
1% or less. Honestly, it's a couple thousand in the school system.
But we have all the communities that you named and more.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't reach Carenage in your list.
No.
And I know that you're working everywhere.
Sure.
So I'm saying that we have hotspots, at-risk communities everywhere. And in all of those communities, there are children, and those children coming into the school system and affecting other children with their level. Children teach children.
But if you go into schools and ask teachers or principals to identify those highest at risk, it's not going to be the majority of students. It's going to be a minority of students.
So then why does fight in the class become the whole class fighting?
No, it's just, mass hysteria. I mean, in any place. I remember in good old Canada, Vancouver, when the Canucks lost the Stanley Cup final. No, it's not different, because these are persons that they were university students who were involved in the melee, turning over cars. And no, I'm saying, when you have that kind of thing, you can't separate that, Philip, because
I will grant you
because
that. Because
human beings, we get caught up in the moment, right?
But why do
so
we
it
get
happens,
so many of
and
those
especially
moments? You use a good impetus there. Your team, that they beat you into a frenzy over your team, and your team lose. So they have sports violence, and I get that. But what's driving the violence in our schools?
Well, exactly what I spoke about prior. There are a lot of traumatized young persons in our school system. Traumatized, right? Some of them are not disruptive in the school system, but if there is a disruption, they may engage.
You engage with our teachers. You think that our education system, our teachers are set up to deal with this?
You see, maybe that's something you need to talk to an education expert of. But I have done a fair amount of professional days with teachers, and teachers do feel overwhelmed, and quite rightly so, because they are on the one end is the Ministry of Education pushing curriculum completion and so forth, and everyone wants to get the work done, and then on the other hand they have these real human needs that some of these students have in the class, who are disrupting the class and so forth, that teachers also have to address with the assistance of the of the school social worker and so forth, who also are overwhelmed because there are a lot of individual issues that students
And it
face.
takes away from the whole class because it takes a lot of, some of these children take a lot of attention, they take a lot of resources to keep them close to being on track with the rest of the class.
Sure.
Slows the class down.
Philip, we were those students.
I know. But you see, in the at-risk communities, and
No, let's see.
what he just said, I want to tell you something. St. Mary's College, we had them busy. We had them busy. But I think that the community support that many of us benefited from.
Well, this is what I want to say. You see, because at a young age, and I mean, I've spoken about this before, 13, 14, I was quite a disruptive student. My parents sent me to see a psychologist, right? You talked about functional families in Westmoreland and these places, but the dysfunctional families in those communities have the resources to send their children
Absolutely.
to
So
a private school,
you know, we come in,
to
we come into that.
counseling, to whatever is required
Bring
to
us,
support
bring
their,
us-
their child,
bring us
right?
that,
And what
bring
I'm
us
saying,
that
and what I'm
poverty.
saying is that there are a large number of Trinbagonians who just don't have those resources.
The
It's
impact
$500
of poverty.
for 50 minutes to sit down and
be counseled.
be counseled.
Poverty, the impact of poverty in the at-risk communities and the hotspots, the inavailability of jobs. Now, this is not really your sphere, but
I thought we were talking about agriculture, you know.
seriously, that's what I got. No, but I just
Our
say,
project in East Port has been.
serious. Tell me
I
about it.
think that's what you wrote, no?
Go on, go.
No. I mean, you go ahead.
Tell me.
No. Well,
What happened? What was the genesis and how did it go?
no. Well, we work. I have some very dedicated, a small team of very dedicated community action officers who work within the communities that we service. And when we come across individuals or groups of individuals who are doing things that are progressive, we try our best to add value to what they're doing. So, a couple of months ago, we came across quite a few groups, about 7 different groups, who were doing agricultural projects pretty much on their own throughout East Port of Spain and Mova. So we decided, okay, let's see if we can get some assistance to help them develop their projects. So we approached the Massey Foundation, and Massey Foundation funded the procurement of some tools, hoses, just gardening tools sort of things, and also to buy a couple hundred seedlings, right? And we distributed these to the 7 communities. And a gentleman from one of these communities up in Picton, he's a very good videographer. Within 2 days of us delivering what we delivered, he did a video on it. And at the end of it, put special thanks to the Citizen Security Program, Ministry of National Security, and Massey Foundation. That video went viral. And then from there, I saw the gentleman, Solomon is his name, from Picton. I saw him on CNC3 with Hema Ramkisoon, I believe. Yeah, talking about. And then we took a team from CNC3 with Ryan Bechu up to see and speak with the individuals. And the thing is, there are a lot of people throughout Trinidad and Tobago doing a lot of very progressive things, right, within their communities. And for CSP, it's always been about finding these people and building their capacity so they can reach more and do more and spread the positivity.
Now, you see, that makes the point. And in a country this wealthy, and I have no problem with private sector involvement to help solve the problem because we all benefit. In fact, I'm a strong advocate for saying that the companies that work in communities, that benefit from being in communities, should make a contribution to the community and the development of the community. They will save money on losses and security because the community will adopt them and look after their interests. So it's a win-win. That type of synergy we're looking for. I have a problem with that. But in a country this wealthy, why would we need to have to look outside for hoses and seedlings? The Ministry of Agriculture is supposed to make 100,000 seedlings available to you right away. Was there positive results from these projects?
Yes, these projects are ongoing, and
they've been harvesting and they've been growing and benefiting.
particularly in St. Babs.
So why?
They,
how,
they've
long,
been
how long ago?
when they started.
Yeah.
I believe they've been at it
About a decade.
over maybe a couple of years.
Has the state then responded by saying, "We see your action, we'll match it and help you"?
Well, remember, Phillip, I work for the state.
Is there anybody advocating for that?
We
Again,
are.
I'm not knocking anybody.
No. Well, so this is
The most important thing out of this, because people like you bring critical information to the public who don't see this.
But Phillip, remember, I work for the Ministry of National Security. So when you say the state, myself and my team, we are working on behalf of the state. If you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So we have liaised with actually another St. Mary's graduate, Nigel Grimes, who works with Ministry of Agriculture, right?
I was going to ask you,
and we're
when
very
you going to GG?
and we're very
TTPS.
we're at a very introductory phase of seeing how we can partner with the Ministry of Agriculture to roll out to build on this what we've happened upon over the last couple of months.
Would you say that, from your view, that things like jobs, value of money, hope and opportunity, ability to own a home, something to do with your life after school, a way to channel that energy productively, would you say that those things lacking in these communities? That it would make an impact on the development of these communities?
For some individuals, yes. If you go into these communities, though, you will see a lot of economic activity going on, okay? Legal economic activity going on, okay? It's not as if persons in high needs communities are not surviving, are not living, are not hustling and trying to earn an honest dollar. That is happening on a daily basis. What we need to do, you see,
that honest dollar you're talking about again, I need to tell you this. Last night I interviewed a little chap, and he came up with this thing on his own when St. Lucia. He and 4 friends, and they've started this. They're making these nut bars and cassava kurma, and they have their own little factory, and they beat the ground every day with baskets selling. Real little authentic little entrepreneurs. And I called Jared Abu at Starlight Drugs and asked him, Jared said calling him right away to give him some shelf space. I'm thinking though, when you say that you see economic activity, I'm not telling you no, you know. I'm just saying that there is a vast canyon between those people. If you took them, those same hustlers and grinders and people who waking up at the crack of dawn and doing the work, and you put them in a functional nation where there is hope, where they could access support and credit to build a business, they'd be doing a lot better. I'm just saying, I'm asking you.
I think it's really connecting persons with the programs that will help to bring out the best in them, the life skills, the social skills. I mean, Serval, I'm an advocate for Serval because over the years we've referred hundreds, if not thousands, of young people through the Serval system, the adolescent development program, then they go on to the trade, where they've come out of that, with a more positive outlook on life. What is lacking with a lot of the young people who drift into criminal activity and these sort of things? They do lack inspiration. They lack a plan. In their head, they have an idea of what they want, but they don't have a roadmap on how to get there in a positive and progressive way. You understand? So you might have a youth man pick up a gun and go and rob someone.
But before he gets to pick up that gun,
Yes.
he is being encouraged daily.
Well, of course,
he's being offered positions daily.
when you say offered positions,
That hustle you hustling
Right,
there,
right.
that paying you at $800 a week. I give you that $800 an hour. You gotta move thing or hold this bag and
there's a few people doing that. Not everybody getting $800 and move something in an hour.
hey,
Most fellas on the block, they're not making heaps of money. They're not. They get their brands.
crime is paying.
No crime.
So why they
It paying for some.
So are there jobs that they turn in their backs on to choose crime?
I understand something. If you live in a certain community, you may not have the confidence to leave that community because of the various conflicts that exist between various communities, especially within East Port of Spain and environs. So persons, and they tell you straight up, I can't work there, I cannot go there. So they look for, something to do within their community or outside of the zone.
Why would that be allowed to exist?
Why would it be allowed to exist?
Why would it be allowed to exist? Why we can't break those things? You have that information. We have the manpower to break those things. For you to be able to say that somebody from this part of Lavantil can come in this part of Lavantil to work, somebody is enforcing that. That enforcer, we need to break that enforcement.
It takes time. And we've been operating since 2008, so that's 11 years, and we're seeing progress, right? And that's by and large due to the fact that the people themselves who live in these communities, I mean, they don't want to. Who wants to live like this?
The first time you went and saw some of these communities, you didn't think that this contradicts this third wealthiest nation in the Western Hemisphere idea of Trinidad and Tobago? You didn't think that somebody had to not be running this place properly for this many people to be this desperate? Living in such squalid conditions?
Well,
Or are we blaming them?
No. You see,
because a lot of people comfortable to do that, A lot of people comfortable.
Of course, I know.
blame.
I know that. You see, it's 6 of one, half dozen the next. There's such a thing called a learned helplessness, and it's something that's real and exists in Trinidad and Tobago. When you have, persons who are being socialized, I'll give an example. So in 1996, when I first started to work in the YMCA with the community of the Beetham, I went in the Beetham Gardens. I'm in the all-in-one school, and I have, about 50 persons there. A lot of them are young people. And I asked them, what kind of person comes out of your community? Without thinking, killers, bandits, all the negative connotations. And then I asked, so what does your father do? Who, my father, sir? He's a plumber. What does your mother do? My mother working for the government. She working in this ministry or city corporation. And how about your father? Sir, my father is a police. And I'm like, okay, so all of these people come out of the Beetham Gardens. Why did you have to tell me that what was coming out initially was just all negative? Because that's what's been, told to them, inculcated into them. And even though that may not be a living reality, they still promote that narrative.
It's coming from somewhere. Where the killers and bandits coming from? I mean, this is our truth. Let's work with
straight
our
up.
truth. Let's work with our truth. We still not secure any borders. Something as simple as that. It's simple. I know the actual mechanics of it is a day-to-day and is a mission. But I'm saying, securing the borders, and I've read reports in the Ministry of National Security, and one of them that has impressed me no end is the Maritime Security Wall. That is a copy of things that works in developed world, where 3 miles out at sea, any marine craft could be challenged and stopped and searched, drugs, guns, whatever. We're a narco state. We've found hundreds of millions of dollars at individual times of drugs here, but it's not enough to make us want to really do the job of securing the borders. We live in a time now where unmanned drones and sonar boys by themselves could be an alarm. We know all of the places.
My forte, Philip, is community.
I get that. No, I get that. But by the time
maritime security.
By the time it reaches you, the availability of guns to these young men is ridiculous. We have videos of high tech, heavy firepower that the police have to face. You know, this is a serious issue. Our justice system. We have nothing like justice on time in Trinidad Tobago. We've been talking about something as simple as a speedy justice statute for 2 decades in Trinidad. But you talk to attorneys and they'll tell you a man could get a murder charge and sit in jail for 15 years and end up being found not guilty. But he's lost 15 years of his life. And now he's a professional bandit when you let him out of jail. We seem to be working against ourselves. And then there's you. And then there's this bright spark of hope in the citizen security program that, and I want Trinidadians to know that there is a lot of work being done. But what's happening with that information? Because from where I sit, and this is not pure politics, I don't think we're actioning the intel you're giving us.
No, it's being actioned. As I said, you know, I don't sit. No, I'm not happy with the pace at all. How can I be happy with the pace?
Then continue. Because I want you to
I came back home in 1995. I've been working in the field since then. So it's 25 years, right? 25 years. 25 years of advocating for certain things. And over the 25 years, I mean, I was very, very much involved, still am to a lesser extent, in child rights and youth rights. And, you know, the Children's Authority has come on board, yes, but we continue to push and hope that as we continue to move on, that things are moving in the right direction, albeit slowly in some of the critical areas, but it's moving, right? I don't sit.
Yeah, let me interrupt you for the break.
Sure.
Let me interrupt you for the break.
Sure.
Because when we come back from this break, I am going to ask you this question.
Sure.
If you had the power, the authority, and the resources to act on what you know, what would you do?
That's a big question.
When we come back.
Okay.
Don't miss your opportunity to advertise right here on the #1 political talk show on Facebook Watch. With an exciting roundup of guests and hot topics each week, Plain Talk reaches a monthly audience upwards of 500,000, putting your ad right in the hands and news feeds of hundreds of thousands of consumers. Packages start at just $500, which guarantees your ad is seen live, on reruns, and on demand. To book your spot, contact our sales team at 347-4737. The future of advertising is online, and that's just Plain Talk.
Sale. Boddington and Associates Optical is offering free eye testing along with 50% off all frames and 30% off all lenses. Boddington and Associates Optical, located at number 17 Carney Savannah Road, Chaguanas, and 11 McBean Road, Couva. Info line 671-5342. Call and book your free eye testing today. Boddington and Associates Optical, helping you see the way.
Antel is Trinidad's most reliable and technically experienced ICT company, providers of quality structured cabling, Cat6 data fiber and power cables. We also stock cabling infrastructure basket-type cable trays for server rooms and data centers. Antel also installs and maintains video security systems including cameras, alarms, and electronic entrance locks for businesses and residential properties. Call Antel 674-1406 or 783-9250.
You take me back in time while we were off there for paying the bills, and he reminded me of a time when, remember a level snow cone? George,
level.
George, give me a level. Break time in St. Mary's, you go for your snow cone and your double. Eh?
Definitely, George.
We had Bella, the cafeteria in the back.
Of course, Alma up the road.
Bella used to sell orange and green juice in Coke bottles, glass bottles.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, but it was sweet.
And what didn't sell today will sell tomorrow.
It was sweet and it was cold. Alma up the road with the plums. God, Trinidad is still the best place in the world to live. Huh? I mean, it hard now, you know. Talking to a youth man last night at an interview, an entrepreneur, and he telling me that St. Lucia people easier to deal with than Trinidad. You see that Trinidad? Yeah. Trinidad get a little hard. So I told you when we were taking the break, I was going to ask you that question. If you had the power, you had the resources, with regards to the challenges people are facing, what would you do?
Well, you see, from my experience, and I'm going to talk from my experience, right? I would focus on the issue of trauma. I see it across the board. Working with children, working with their parents, working with teachers in the school system, even interfacing with police officers, professionals. Stress, trauma, it inhibits persons from really realizing their full potential. It inhibits people from interacting with people in a calm, friendly manner, right? A lot of what we see is a manifestation of trauma playing out itself, okay? And as I said, right now, and I've said this for decades since I came back home, I would definitely look at hiring or engaging hundreds, if not thousands, more social workers, mental health workers, family case workers, these sort of individuals who currently exist within the framework of our education system. We have the social workers. Within our health system, right, we have our social workers, our mental health practitioners, and so forth. Within the social services, we have National Family Services that has the family workers and the social workers. So it's not to reinvent the wheel. It is just to put a lot more air in the tire of that wheel so it can move smoothly and efficiently. Right? I see that as a major. If we can start to really treat with the psycho-emotional health of our what keeps a young person from going out there and working in KFC, for instance. I mean, a lot of them are doing it, but I work with a lot of young people who over the years told me absolutely not. They're not working in any of those service industries because how it go look. And I would always answer them by saying it will look like you're serious, because we all have to start somewhere. Right? And this is all about life skills. It's all about understanding yourself, charting a roadmap for where you see yourself in the future, and then embarking on that mission one step at a time. Okay? I've had a young individual, and this is more than one, but I'll give you this one story. He comes to the YMCA. He's hustling on the streets, 13, 14 years old. So I asked him, what do you want to be when you grow up? So I want to be a soldier. I said, you want to be a soldier? I said, how you plan on being a soldier? You're 14 years old, you're on the streets. How you plan on being a soldier? He says, I don't know. You could help me. I was at the YMCA at the time. So I made a few calls. They said, well, try and sign him up with a school cadet group. So we called a few schools. We got a school, Belmont Intermediate. We signed him up there. Non-students can join school cadets, right? Even if you're not in the school. They have like, maybe it's a community cadet corps or that operates in the school. He joined the cadet corps, right? I got some persons to fund that. So he got his boots and whatever he required. From there, he went to Serval. Got his literacy, learned a trade, continued with the cadets. When he became 18, he applied to the army. Took him about 2-3 years on that list. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Pulled no strings. Back and forth, back and forth. Just his tenacity. And having had a roadmap to possibly get in there, with some support from the YMCA, he got into the army. And he's a private today. He's been there for the last maybe 10 years. Right? It can happen.
Okay, but what's his quality of life?
Well, it's
Where is he in his development? Does the normal questions, family, home, that kind of stuff. How's he doing?
He's doing quite well. I mean,
so you have success stories.
Many success stories. I would not be doing this. This is my 30th year doing this work. And I would not be here today doing it still if it was a series of abject failure. It's been very successful.
So would you say that we could amplify those successes exponentially if we put resources to bear on the situation? If you had your 1,000 social workers and your mental health workers, if you had resources to bear at the developmental stage, could you interrupt the cycle?
Most definitely. I think I think right now that is one of the keys that we're not, that hasn't gotten sufficient attention. Because when you look at the schools today, I mean, we have schools in high needs communities that have 1 social worker, 2 social workers, for 1,000 students, where maybe 10% of that population is experiencing some serious issues. Okay, so that's 100 students, and you need to have a caseload of 1 to 30, let's say, max, if you want to do a really credible job with the types of issues that young persons are coming to school with, right? National Family Services, I mean, maybe 30 social workers, 35 social workers for Trinidad and Tobago. We need hundreds, because right now there are thousands of cases that need to be treated with, and it's not a mental health situation, a psycho-emotional situation. It's not a situation that you give 2 aspirin and come back.
You in the redevelopment of people business.
I am in the
That's what you are.
transforming lives business.
Transformation, I'll use that word. Okay. Things like the Parent Teachers Association. You can support them?
Yeah, we over the years we definitely have worked.
Do you think that our PTAs are vibrant?
Some more than others, but all of those things need strengthening. All of those things. Remember, when I talk about...
But the root cause, you see, the reason I'm asking that question is parents, right? Because a lot of times we talk about the problems, and you say that there are no lost generations, and you know that you want to fix the children.
A generation is like the whole cohort.
Yeah, but I want to say...
You don't have a whole cohort
the adults
that is lost.
The adults, those parents of those children that need transformation. You are fixing kids and sending them back into a dysfunctional system.
No, well,
like Alcoholics Anonymous tells you, you don't just treat the alcoholic, you treat the family. So the system, and I'm asking you, does your system reflect that? Do you realize that what what bent this young tree can continue to impact upon him. You can't send this child into a violent home now with different skill sets and that violence
Right.
still impacting upon him.
So a lot of the work that we have done and continue to do is also within the communities, working with parents, elders, NGOs, CBOs, faith-based organizations that all have as their remit or as their passion to help their communities. Not all of them have the skill sets or the understanding. Just this morning I was talking about the fact that in Trinidad, a lot of well-meaning, well-intentioned adults demonstrate their caring through quite abusive behaviors and language, you know. But at the essence of why they're communicating what they're communicating is to try and assist this young person or to turn this young person away from doing something negative and so forth. But how they do it is not appropriate at all and is not actually going to achieve the end that they hope to achieve.
Yeah.
It actually fuels more animosity and so forth. But I have been in many situations where I've seen adults, it's not only parents, adults, who exhibit these antisocial tendencies, cussing, carrying on, getting on. But in their minds, they believe that they are helping this young person, or this is the only way they could communicate, or this is how they understand. I can't talk to them soft. I can't.
It's like the joke, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Right. You understand? And this is a cultural thing that we have to come to terms with and recognize that, okay, here what? Because parents who we've interfaced with over the years most definitely have come to understand that, wow, I understand what you're saying, you know, but that's how I was raised. I turned away from wrong because of X, Y, and Z. But, you know, not everybody's the same.
So would you say we have a culture of violence?
Most definitely we have a culture of violence in Trinidad
Licks
Tobago.
culture.
Of course. But that's not a secret. If anybody, that's not a secret. When they remove corporal punishment from these schools, the school system, like, it collapsed. And I always said to myself, because I was one of those advocates, proudly so, who spoke out against corporal punishment. And they need to end corporal punishment because it was perpetuating violence. Right?
But shouldn't it have been replaced with something?
Of course. But imagine you remove that. You remove corporal punishment,
And
physical punishment from a school. And all of a sudden, teachers throw up their hands, principals throw up their hands and say, well,
and contrast and
well, we
compare
lost control of the children. We can't. And I'm saying to myself, wow.
Nobody trained the teachers. Nobody explained to the teachers that we're going down a different path. Nobody gave the teachers these new tools. You're looking at countries like Finland and Holland that using meditation now with children.
Jamaica too, huh?
Jamaica, look
Yeah.
at that. I think that Jamaica is just accelerating some of the decisions they're making and some of the policies they're putting into place. So impressive. I mean, we used to look at Jamaica as the least among equals, and they've leaped the front. What is keeping us from developing empathy and compassion and understanding all human beings have the same needs and the same wants, and that we need to start to work together as one people and maybe start to utilize all of these lessons from all over the world. Africa and the Ubuntu culture. I mean, we have so many good examples. Why are we, who are good and decent people naturally, so bad at this?
Well, you see, once again, you're going beyond our shores. But right here within Trinidad and Tobago, we have those examples. There are many community groups, many organizations. And Phillip, you would know from traveling around Trinidad and Tobago that there's so much positivity going on in little silos here and there. And what we have to do is we have to feed those more,
Yeah.
and use our local examples. Because people tend to say in Trinidad, and quite rightly so to an extent, well, that is there, that is not here, right? But right here, we have things that are working.
This guy who just died, Roy and Gloria,
Right, Hal
Graves.
I worked with Hal.
he was one of those people that I used to think that if Hal had more resources, what could he not get done?
No, Hal had a very big, huge heart. And a very good understanding.
Family, you talk about Serval, the Panton family, the impact they had.
Well, Serval has had and continues to have a great impact. But it's throughout the length of better Trinidad
When
and Tobago, you know.
was Minister of National Security, we were looking at numbers where literacy was driving a lot of crime. We came up with this program called Literacy First, and we wanted to have a law passed that anybody that wanted to go OJT, CPEP, URP, HDC, any of the alphabet soup of government handouts, you had to go and get a literacy test. And if you were illiterate, you had to make yourself available to become literate. That anybody who is arrested for any crime, the magistrate and the judge had to first order a literacy test so that we could start to attack it on a massive scale. If we put resources to that, to something like illiteracy, because you spoke earlier about that, and I don't think people
But
understand the impact illiteracy is having on causing crime. A lot of these children who did not learn now find themselves.
Well, I want to paint a picture for you. Right? Because I would contest that illiteracy is a symptom of a problem, as I said earlier, right? Because it's not as if the young adults, 16 onwards, who can become literate, functional literate, start to read and write, comprehend what they're reading after a 3, 6 month, 9 month period when they're 16, 18, 20. Why couldn't they do that when they were younger? So what happens is, this is the picture I'm going to paint before we end, right? So you have a young person, they're traumatized at home. Neglect, domestic violence, substance abuse, left to their own devices, right? They go to school every morning, they can't focus, right? They can't focus. They didn't sleep well the night before, for the numerous reasons. They didn't eat well. They come to school. They disrupt the class, right? Or they're not engaging. They may not even be disruptive, but they're not engaging. They sit SEA or don't sit SEA, depending on the situation, right? It starts to compound itself, the challenges at home and within their communities and so forth. Where does that leave them when they come looking for a job and you need a minimum of English, maths, and one other subject, 3 subjects? Or you need to be literate to get a factory job because you at least have to know how to turn off this machine, how to read the instructions for this, whatever have you. So at that early age, is what I'm saying, is where we need to start to really focus on intervening, and this is where the education system, through teachers, identifying the kids who seem to be challenged from a young age, will intervene with the Children's Authority, who would dispatch a worker, to a family case worker, to maybe go and interface with the family, understand what the situation is there, then interface with social development or National Family Services to craft a plan of action, plan of care for the child and also for the family. Maybe it's a substance abuse problem, maybe it's a domestic violence problem. Just to think and operate more proactively, to actually treat with the symptoms, with the problem, before the symptoms start to exacerbate and grow and grow and grow to a point where it becomes as we say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
This is easier to raise functional children and fix dysfunctional adults.
And that is true, right? This is why I'm saying, at this juncture in Trinidad and Tobago, I would always advocate for more social outreach.
Are you also talking about the fact that the Ministry of Education now has a second line in the development of these children? We're not getting it at home, but we need functional teachers who have the skill set to recognize and understand and even assist children especially in these communities who exhibit these problems.
Well, a teacher would know just from the grades. When the grades come back, it's like, wow, this one got 1 out of 100, 10 out of 100. Why?
Does that ring an alarm?
Well,
is there an intervention immediately? Somebody was telling me about a child that was sold.
No, I'm not saying that there is a intervention immediately. Sure.
A child that was sold into slavery in Trinidad, and they only found out when she came something of age, and she told her story. And somebody was asking me, and one of our members mentioned at a meeting, why when a child is born and that document created, birth certificate, is it not put in a system where the Ministry of Education is expecting this child at 3 or 4? It's expecting you. Because when your birth certificate is written, unless a death certificate is written, you're an active person. Why isn't the Ministry of Education expecting this person at 3 or 4? Why isn't an alarm raised? Because there is no death certificate to move them from this data. There should be a database, 1.4 million people, 200,000 children. So it's easy to do this. Your birth certificate automatically goes into fields in a database so that the Ministry of Education, when they're planning next term, bringing in children, you don't go and sign up. They know this come in. The schools could access and say that yes, this child is going to St. Andrews or this child is going to Malik. So we know, but there should be an ability for an alarm to be raised that this child is going nowhere.
Well, I know that I have 3 children, and they're all passed through the local system. And at every point, we had to produce the electronic birth paper with their PIN number.
If you didn't take the child to school, unless somebody reported you.
Well, some children are not even registered.
But that's the
so they
point.
don't even have a PIN number.
But that's the point. From when you say not registered, you mean at birth?
Yeah. We have children born, in the countryside in some places where...
There's another issue.
I mean, that's a small percentage.
That's a small percentage, but I'm saying...
But most of them...
Shouldn't all births...
Of course. I definitely, I'd advocate for that. Most definitely, of course.
The Ministry of Education could be used to assist here. I mean,
You'd have to have someone from the Ministry of Education come on and discuss that, because I'm sure...
No. I just wanted to say, though, because, again, for the people looking on, they need to know that there is hope.
Listen, there's a lot of hope. People talk about a failed state, you yourself included, Phillip. Right? I hear this failed state thing all the time. Listen.
Don't argue with me on that,
Sudan is a failed state.
All right, they're failed states.
No. Trinidad and Tobago, we have challenges, many challenges to overcome. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're not in a...
We're not a politician now.
No. I'm sounding like someone who's on the ground, who feels that sense of hope, because I see it every day.
All of us who do this, do this with hope.
Right. And I remain optimistic because I feel and my tank gets filled from the communities that I interface with, the individuals I interface with, the families I interface with, because they are also optimistic. Okay? It exists. We grumble. The most comfortable Trini grumbles. Okay? Complains. The most comfortable one. Okay? It's in our DNA, it seems. We are born to complain. Right? We need to come together. We need to, as I tell people, we need to work in our area of influence. Those who have financial influence need to assist in developing the country, right? I have worked, since I've come back home now, it's been maybe 5 or 6 different administrations. I've worked in the NGO sector, I've worked in government. And yes, there are those bureaucratic challenges, right? I've seen it. I've been a part of it.
So when you say that,
yes,
that's what I have to interrupt.
Sure.
If you say that there are bureaucratic challenges,
yes,
the government's job is to make that seamless and work better for you.
Yes.
So again, and this is all I'm saying, This is all I'm saying, because when you say it to me, I can't say this is a failed state. Gregory, there are too many examples and too many people living in too much desperation for me to not. For a country this wealthy.
Yeah,
I'm saying to you, and you're right, you operate in a realm, and you're on the ground, you're getting your positivities. My view is more macro. I want to see the whole community rise. I want home ownership, the cost of housing, jobs, the value of the money in your pocket. I want hope and opportunity to infect the nation. I want people to be able to access opportunities that maximize their potential, just like you.
Agreed.
Just like you. Mm-hmm. I want our people, all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, no matter where you're born, to be able to say, you know what, I want to be an astronaut. And there'll be resources to help you pursue that. But this show is one of, I hope, others to come. I'd like to bring you on a panel of other people dealing with all of these issues and maybe start to connect the dots a little bit. But thank you very much for coming. Let me give you
Sure.
your closing comments. If you want some closing comments, go with that.
Well, you said you want to bring hope, and I mean, there is hope. Trinidad Tobago has a lot of potential, and I really feel that we need to just harness that potential in each and every one of us. I have seen persons overcome grave challenges in their lives to succeed. Right here in Trinidad, from behind the bridge, in Tobago, difficult circumstances in South, from Toko, the length and breadth. So it's not as if we can't do it if we come together and really focus on what needs to be done. I think we spoke a lot about it in the last hour. So thank you.
He is the program coordinator of the Citizen Security Program. It doesn't get the coverage it deserves. I don't think it has the size it should. They do fantastic work. They've broken through and broken down walls, and I think that knowing that Gregory and people like him and the crew and the team that he works with, the organization that he's a part of, could only help us. We need to be a rising tide that lifts all boats. Trinidad and Tobago is too blessed to be distressed. That sounds like a platitude on ad. We should not have these problems. Our people should not have these challenges and these difficulties. And it will only change when it becomes an issue for all of us, when all of us want it to change. And I think we're heading there. The people are waking up. We're having an awakening. And again, I'd like to thank Gregory for coming. I would like to thank the whole Citizen Security Program for having him on this show. And I want to tell all of you in that organization and all the sister and brother organizations working with you, great job. Keep up the good work. This has been Plain Talk. Until next time, stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago.